Hey, this is Prometheus giving you another tip, a Madden 17 tip. This is pre-release tips based on speculation and how I feel about this, but actually I want to break down to some more football concepts. And this is going to be some very good information for you guys that are new to the game of football and new to the game of Madden. For you guys that have been playing the game Madden a long time, this is going to be some fairly basic stuff. However, some of the stuff I'm going to be discussing are going to be stuff that's actually beyond my skill set, primarily because I've never actually played on a defensive line when I played high school football, or did I play the offensive line. I was a defensive back, and I was terrible to begin with. But needless to say, this is actually going to talk about, this particular thing is going to talk about gaps, and it's also going to talk about defensive line techniques. And why this is critical is because it actually will help you with your running game by understanding the techniques and the kind of alignments that are going to be susceptible to certain types of runs. So with this, let's go ahead and talk about basically what I want to talk about basically is the gap. So, you know, to kind of fully understand alignment's technique, we actually need to start with the offensive line. When it comes to the offensive line, you've got 5 offensive linemen in our set, and the spaces between them are called gaps. So in this image, you can go ahead and see that. Now, the space between the center and either guard is considered an A gap. The space between the guard and the tackle is considered a B gap, and the outside of the tackle is considered a C cap. So you can see this real clearly right here in this image right here that I pulled off of a website. Now, for the offense, the identification of the gaps serves as a basis of directing a running game. On defense, those gaps allow the team to focus their blitz plans. So that's why when you see a lot of the YouTube videos that say A gap blitz, a B gap blitz, or C gap blitz, or edge blitz, it's going to kind of give you an idea on that. Now, the defense always wants to fill each gap on each play, trying to prevent the offense from being able to run the ball. Now, depending on the type of defensive alignments used, it could either be a 43 where there's 4 defensive linemen, or a 34 where there's 3 defensive linemen. The gaps can be filled either with a defensive lineman or a linebacker, and that is where technique enters into the equation. Now, defensive linemen have a lot more flexibility on the way they align themselves when it compared to the offensive linemen. They can basically align themselves any way that they want. Does the defensive tackle align himself directly over the center, or should he shade off into one of the gaps? And this is where the technique gives us an answer. Now, if you look at the chart right here, this depicts the techniques in red. An even number, including 0, means that the defensive lineman is aligned directly over the corresponding offensive line. For example, a 0 technique is defensive tackle aligns himself directly over the center, while a 2 technique allows him to align himself over the guard. Now, the odd number gives the defensive player is sliding instead of being directly over the offensive lineman to the outside shoulder of that player. Essentially, he is moving into the gap on the outside of the offensive lineman's shoulder. So a 1 technique defense tackle allows a gap between the center and the guard. Now, why this actually caught my attention and why I'm actually trying to treat this stuff to you, or give this stuff to you guys, is because I was reading an article about Eddie Goldman. He's the defensive nose tackle for the Chicago Bears, and he said, I was in a 1 technique, and if they did an inside zone blitz for me, the center is not going to be able to get to me, so I went ahead and I'm just gonna go lights out to the ball here. And on that particular play in practice, he was able to go ahead and tackle Jacquizz Rodgers in the backfield for a loss right on the goal line situation. So this is what actually intrigued me about this. Now, in order to adjust the technique alignments for the defending aligning for the inside shoulder of the offensive lineman, typically the answer would be used as I, which would be inside, for the even number. So a defensive line end lined up in the 4I technique is playing on the center side of the tackle. So that's where you see the 2I and the 4I. That's actually going to be showing that they're going to be doing a 4, but they're going to be doing the inside shoulder, basically getting leverage against those tackles or those right guards. Now, if you add a tight end to the offensive line, a 6 technique will allow for a defensive player directly over top of the tight end, while a 7 technique will be on the outside of the shoulder. When you jump into the mystical wide 9 technique, now the wide 9 was actually a defensive set that actually was added to Madden after Madden 25 because the strong power was just so effective. They added wide 9 to go ahead and shut that down. In this case, defensive ends will line up outside of the offensive line for the purposes of keeping within the numbers and pretending that there's another offensive lineman next to the tight end, which would represent an 8 technique, then a 9 would be on the outside shoulder. In most cases, the defensive end spread out wide and tilts their bodies towards the quarterback. He likely has no run support responsibility and is simply going to do everything he can to get to the quarterback. Now, a lot of the blitzes that I've actually shown, basically you could say that the linebackers are almost in a 9 technique, because all they're going to be doing is just doing edge pressure to come off the edge. Now, knowing the techniques also tells you exactly what the defender's responsibilities is. In a 43 formation, where the player is likely to line up in an odd technique position, a defensive lineman is responsible for his gap. Now, in a 34 formation, there are players lined up directly over the offensive lineman in front of them, and the defender is responsible for 2 gaps. And that's the major difference between a defensive tackle and a nose tackle. Now, why this is critical to understand this stuff is because this is basically going to go ahead and give you an idea of what the over and under of different formations, what the techniques are, what are the responsibilities, and this is actually going to provide you first and foremost is going to give you a better understanding about what alignments actually stop, which runs, what alignments are actually going to be susceptible to each run. So offensively and defensively, you're going to have to go ahead and make those adjustments. Now, Madden 17 is going to basically show you more gap adjustments and gap alignments for run protection, and that's what's going to make this game a little bit more interesting. The game is getting more complex, but it's getting more complex in Madden concepts and NFL football concepts. So this is going to make you a better fan of the game, because you're going to understand a lot more what's going on with the game and what the teams are doing. So one of the things I want to talk to you about is the difference between power O's and running games, and what the responsibility is. So let's go ahead and take a look at the difference between a counter and a power O running game. Now, so I want to talk about power O's and counter plays. Now, power O's has always been a very effective running game in Madden, and counters have been seeing their good days, or like overpowering days, and they've been pretty much toned down this past year, but they might be coming back. And the reason why powers and counters are going to be kind of setting the stage for basically talking about blocking assignments and going against the techniques is because they are basically so effective because they're designed to be forged from aggression. Now, they're deliberately built on double team blocks and kick out blocks and lead blocks and down blocks, and they're going to be finished off by a very effective running back. Now, to understand the power, there's nothing really magical about the power play. It's just been around for a very long time, and almost every NFL team runs a power of some sorts. The Seahawks, the Vikings, the Steelers, the Bills, and it's basically emphasized more than others, but it produces some of the most dramatic plays in recent history. If you remember the one play by Marshawn Lynch in Beast Mode, where he basically knocks off a bunch of people, that was actually a power play. So what's good about the power play is that the way it's designed, it's actually going to go ahead and get the blocking and go ahead and take away those alignments. Now, basically the responsibility of the power is the following. The play side linemen, such as the tight end, the tackle, the guard, the basic rules for each of the play side linemen is a gap on linebacker, which means they first check their inside gap. Then they're going to look to see if anybody's lined up across from them, and then finally, if there's no defender on either side of the gap or across from them, they're going to block any sideline backer. Now, the hope is that the straightforward rule will help produce them at least one double team block from the play side, typically with the guard or the tackle double teaming the defensive tackle. And the basic idea of the double team is for the 2 linemen to move the defender out of the way until one slips off to block the linebacker for a last second. Only the lineman can smell the linebacker's breath, as a coach once said, so there is no hope for success unless the double team is effective. The center will step backside to stop any kind of inside penetration. Now, the backside guard, known as the wrapper, because his job is to wrap around the lead block for the runner, and the backside guard is tasked with pulling and blocking the first unblocked defender who appears. Now, the backside tackles the step inside the seal off penetration, then turn up and hinges to stop any backside pursuit. Now, the fullback is known for the trapper, because his job is to execute a trap or kick out block to create an alley. And the fullback is going to go to block the first thing that comes off the tight end's edge inside out. Now the running back, basically, the running back is kind of told to actually read the alphabet, reading the play side A to B to C to D gaps for the running lane. So when you are running Power O, you should be first looking to the A gap to see if that's available to you, then going ahead into the B gap, then to the C gap, and to the D gap to see if that's available to you. So you should be going inside out for trying to find your hole. A lot of times when people do Power O's, and I know I've been doing this a lot too, is I've been looking for the outside. I'm looking to the C gap or B gap, but I really should be looking inside and working my progressions out. So that's probably the most important thing, is just having patience when it comes running to Power O's. Now, a good complement to the Power O is the counter play, and it's a play that's been utilized in Madden for a long time, and basically for the NFL and in college football. But the beauty of these plays is that you're just going to have the thrill of a guard that's just going to come out and just clear up some defenders and actually open up a huge hole. It's fairly straightforward to run from various formations. Now, there's subtle adjustments to create the big plays for the run, and this means that motioning and shifting tight ends and fullbacks and extra offensive linemen will create more confusion. So they're essentially creating gaps, and we're making, and it's making linebackers think that they have an A gap between the guard and the center, but wait, everyone's shifted over and now they have a C gap, and they really can't pick up where they could go ahead and got their cap thing, which gap they're going to be able to jump into. Now, one of the things you can take a look at with a counter play is that it's just essentially designed to go ahead and have a little misdirection, and then the linemen are actually going to just come out of nowhere. If you could take a look at some of these plays right here, you're going to see that this lineman is going to come out and pop one of the defenders on the other side. And it's just a very good play to go ahead and run. And if you mix in the Power O with the seal off the side, and then you go ahead and mix in the counter plays, these are going to be very good plays to go ahead and do this, or go ahead and have an effective running game with it. So I'm going to be labbing the counters and the Power O's and trying to find the gaps, labbing how to run these plays effectively, and looking for the holes and where you want to go and see things. So to my subscribers, I really appreciate your support. One of the things I do want to share with you, my channel is a little bit unique. If you're new to my channel from Yuck Gaming, I want to go ahead and recommend go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Not only am I going to be showing you basic football concepts that will help you show your game, but every time I do provide a tip, if I provide a scheme, you're going to see it live in action against live opponents. You're going to see how effectively I run it. So I don't actually just provide tips and say, oh yeah, good luck, and then you see in the comment section it doesn't work. You'll be able to see these tips live in action. To my subscribers, I appreciate the support. Until next time.